Tom Izzo was the guest on John Rothstein's Inside College Basketball podcast this week. It's a great interview if you're a Michigan State fan or a Big Ten fan or just a fan of college hoops. You should go listen to the show. Shout out to Rothstein for an incredible interview. But Izzo was asked about his roster, some takeaways from the summer, I don't know, his whole roster building approach these days, and coming off a great season. What are his expectations for his returning group coming back? And I'm just going to play a clip from this, about 40 seconds of Tom Izzo talking about what he sees in his roster and maybe comparing it to another team in the Big Ten. This is Izzo.
What we've got a couple these days. Cohen's gotten a lot better. Jeremy Spears, Carson Cooper has really made some progress, and Jackson Kohler, and that's four pretty good mainstays that have played a lot of minutes here. Now it's about adding in the guys. Does a Kurtang, a shooter that we have, really improved? Does it got to be one of our new guys? But I think we, more than anybody but Purdue, maybe, we have a base of our, I wouldn't say starters back, but top 6 or 7 guys. And 2 of those guys are now seniors. And I think that's illegal. I don't think they're allowed to have us.
Think that's illegal to have a couple seniors in your rotation. Tom Izzo always cracking the jokes in the summer. Anybody but Purdue was the quote. That's what I want to talk about here. He loves his returners. He gave by name mention to Jeremy Fears and to Cohen Carr, 2 guys Michigan State fans are expecting breakout years from. Also mentioned Jackson Kohler, said even that Jackson kind of got there at the end of last year. And then that Carson Cooper's been a breakout guy this summer. I don't think any of that surprises anybody. Those are the 4 big returners from last year's rotation, and Tom Izzo's program is always built on player progression, development, year-over-year stuff. That's what makes the Michigan State program special. We know this. But anybody but Purdue, Izzo saying you look across the 18-team Big Ten, this league, outside of Purdue, I think we've got a core as good as anybody that's returning, and seeming to imply that, they're intentional in this. They are doing it a different way than everybody else in the league other than Purdue. You could interpret this 2 ways, Dion. You could interpret this that he feels his core truly is the second best core in the league almost, or you could spin it the other way and kind of say, is he admitting that Purdue's clearly better than Michigan State? Or you could go in a different direction. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this quote, my friend?
My first thought is I think I hate Tom Izzo, but I also think I love Tom Izzo because I want to destroy him for this quote, but like he always makes it work because
Yep.
it's like one of those things where it's like he's basically saying I returned Carson Cooper. That's the same as or almost the same as Purdue returning like TKR. But like at the same time, we can destroy him, and then we look up and Michigan State's leading the Big Ten in January. They probably won't be because of obviously because of Purdue, but that's the same thing we did last offseason. We're doing it again this offseason where it's like, hey, you're doing it the wrong way. Everybody uses the portal. Everybody uses NIL. Boom, they win the Big Ten by 3 games. So it's like one of those situations where I don't know how to critique Izzo. The only thing I'll say is the angle I'm going to run with it as someone with 3 units on Purdue to win the national title.
I just love that shout every single time. I love it.
And the president of the Omer Meyer fan club, I think everybody in the country knows how good Purdue is at this point. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't think anybody, including Tom Izzo, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, is afraid to admit, hey, we're chasing them. Now, I don't think Izzo believes he can't catch up to them, but I think Izzo does believe like if we're going up a mountain, they're beating him by 20 feet at the moment, and he's got to get his guys ready to go chase. I love Purdue. That's a scary Tom Izzo. That's a scary Michigan State because like that Spartan dog. Now they get a chip on their shoulder, or in the words of Brett Bielema, they get a chip on both shoulders, even maybe. Like I think that's a scary version of this Michigan State team. I don't think he's incorrect. I can't think of a better returning core in the Big Ten besides Purdue than Michigan State. I also think they're the only team that has a returning core besides Purdue.
Disagree. I want to talk through that. That was going to be my angle here. I got to find a way to nitpick this. But first, let me give the honest, I'm okay with this side and respect to Tom Izzo. Because, listen, as a fellow champion, as another guy who hung a banner last year. I mean, as far as I know, there were only two Big Ten programs that hung a banner last year. It was Tom Izzo and it was me. So I like to think, as part of this conglomerate, as this little club, the winner circle here, I get what Tom Izzo's saying because he's a champion the same way I'm a champion. Let's be clear about that. But Tom Izzo, listen, he can say whatever the hell he wants, and I'm nod and agree with it. We saved the Big Ten together, mind you. But no, he won the league by 3 games. He pantsed my team twice when it mattered. He made me question Dusty May for like a very small second in time. And then he certainly made Purdue look silly. This Purdue core that even Tom Izzo is willing to go on record and say looked better. I mean, that Purdue core was no problem for the Jace Richardson-led Michigan State Spartans. So, look, I don't even like doing the Jace thing. I know everyone has done that. Like, Michigan State was special last year. Was it all Jace or was it not? Clearly, it was both. Jace was incredible, and he had a roster full of really awesome role players that, if they have a superstar, can win everything. The question is, can those role players win things without a superstar, or who's going to be the superstar this year? Is it going to be Cohen Carr? Is it Jeremy Fears? I don't know. To me, I actually don't think Tom Izzo is saying in this quote, I don't think he is saying we have the second best group of returning players. Now, if you interpret it like that, I have pushback for that because I think there's some teams that return better players than Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr that I'm going to mention in a moment. But I don't interpret it that way. To me, what he is saying is, look, the only two schools in our league right now that want to build a program the way I want to build a program are Purdue and us.
Yeah.
And he even goes on to say in a different clip, like, Matt Painter's a good friend of mine. We've talked about it. You saw a year ago, Matt Painter didn't even bring in a transfer. After going into the national championship game, Matt Painter said, that's not how I want to build my program. Like, we're a special program that's winning. Let me just retain my guys. Now, Purdue finished tied for fifth in the league and decided I better get some better players in, right? But the point is, Izzo and Painter shared the same ethos of, like, I'm going to make my players better. I'm going to commit to these guys for 4 years. I'm not going to recruit over them. We're going to plug gaps when we need to. And that is special. It clearly works. And you can't knock him for it. So that's how I interpret the quote. He's the champ right now. If I'm a Michigan State fan, honestly, why are we even putting Purdue on a pedestal? Obviously, they're good, and he's respecting Paint, his friend. He's respecting who Braden and TKR are. But, like, also, we punked them boys. Why? If we have to talk returning cores, like, are we really a step below Purdue when our returning core beat theirs last year? That would be my Michigan State fan approach. But at the same time, if I'm Purdue mind now, I take this as a sign of respect. Like, you have reached the level as a program and a team and a core Braden Smith has, where you have Tom Izzo's respect of that's the team to beat in the summer. That's hard to do.
Yeah, I honestly, I wish he disrespected Purdue because I could have ran with that for days. But Izzo knew what he was doing. Izzo, because
Right.
he, instead of giving them the motivation, his guys are now like, oh, my coach thinks Purdue has a better returning core. Let me get in the lab a little bit. Let me. Kurt Tank's in there like, oh, I'm supposed to improve. I need my jumper to be knocked down. And Cohen is, well, he has a lot to improve on, but I do think he's making those improvements
Yeah,
though.
that's your all-American Cohen Carr in your own words. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jonathan Kuminga with the jumper.
Better than Jonathan Kuminga, who has a lot to improve on.
Well, only one of them is on a roster currently.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. Now I am gonna be contractually obligated to do the other side of this though, because I feel like I just try to be as honest and unbiased as I can with some jokes mixed in. Now let's interpret his words just strictly as if we were doing a literal reading of the words that he said here. Outside of Purdue, I like our core as much as anybody's. That's what he said. Core returning players outside of Purdue, we're as good as anybody. I don't think so. I don't think that's true. Here's some teams that return a quote unquote core that I would look at for this year that to me are ahead of Michigan State's players on paper. people might not like this one. John Blackwell is a first team All Big Ten player. He's going to be incredible. Him mixed in with Nolan Winter in the front court. Now it's only two guys. It's not, you don't have a Carson Cooper as your fourth guy, but I think Wisconsin will be okay without that. John Blackwell's a much better player than Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr on paper. I don't like Jake Diebler, but Ohio State returning Bruce Thornton, John Mobley, Devin Royal is like pretty awesome compared to two guys that averaged 7 a game last season. Going further down the list, I'm surprised it even took me this long to get to this one. Kylan Boswell and Tom Ivisic is a much better returning core than whatever Michigan State's returning core is on paper. That's why Illinois is going to be ranked higher than Michigan State coming into this season. And then lastly, no one even wants to acknowledge that this one exists, but Jackson Shellstad and Nate Biddle are both all conference level players with enormous numbers. The questions for Oregon are everything else that's new that they added, but returning players, those are cores that are back. If you want to make the argument Michigan State returns more, they return 9 guys instead of 2, then whatever. But it's pretty clearly not the second best returning core in the league. Otherwise, Michigan State would be picked second in the league, and they're not.
That's a good point because, I mean, for Illinois, you even have to include their starting power forward, my dog, Rizzi. Like we've cracked the starting lineup yet again, dog. Like we're back. Oregon's 2 players probably have the highest upside too of anybody in that group, right? Like those are
100%.
5-star guys. I like to ignore that Ohio State basketball team exists, so that's why I didn't think about them.
Me
And then
too.
Wisconsin, I just forget about them. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be very, very good this season, but I always forget about them. But I think the biggest gripe on the list you just mentioned, I normally don't feed into Illinois fans having gripes. I know this. Like I made the academic stuff. Illinois fans should actually have a really big gripe with this comment that their returning core is phenomenal,
It's
and they
good.
return what 60% of their minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, they should have a really big gripe with this comment.
Yeah, it's really good. And haven't even mentioned UCLA, who gets back Bilodeau, Eric Daly, Sky Clark. Like there are a lot of teams in the league this year that return 3 starters.
Yeah.
Like Michigan State loses Holloman, Akins, and Jace. I don't think Michigan State's level of like rotation minutes is that much higher than all the other teams in the middle of the pack. And the reality is, in preseason, Michigan State's picked behind a lot of those teams. So again, it's going to come down to Fears and Carr. I expect big leaps from Fears and Carr. I do. But to me, they could make a big leap and still finish 6th in the league. That's sort of where I'm at. To me, if Michigan State finishes higher than that, it probably means one of the new guys, Trey Fort or somebody, is like way better than expected. And it could happen. Cam Ward, the freshman, could be really, really good. But yeah, just if we're doing a literal interpretation, like outside of Purdue, I'll take my core. I think he'd be alone in that. Michigan State fans might be with him, but I don't think anybody nationally would.
UCLA also with their returners was able to get a 5-star transfer to commit too. So I mean,
Right.
UCLA has a lot going for. Ironically enough, those guys that Izzo mentioned returning, I think Kohler and Carr get in each other's way a little bit. Like
Really?
I think the best version of both those players is with the other one not on the court. Cohen Carr to me, if you play him at the 4 with spacing, like the version of Cohen Carr that I think is an All-American, play him at the 4 with spacing, like with no one else able to get in his way. That's the best version of him. I don't think he can do that with Kohler. Kohler's so talented, you can't keep Kohler off the floor.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Izzo has tended to go bigger rather than smaller, play both those guys next to Cooper. But yeah, I think you're right. Like it would have been great for Michigan State if Jackson Kohler ever hit a growth spurt. Like if he just got to like 6'11" and you could play him at the 5 next to Cohen at the 4. I agree that would unlock a lot of things, but Kohler's just a little too small to be a full-time 5, and that's the reality. So if you're going to play him where he needs to play, it puts Cohen in a tough spot. Maybe we'll see Cohen at the 4 his senior year after Jackson Kohler's final year this year. But I don't know. Again, I like the Michigan State returning group, right? I put them 6th in my preseason. I don't think that's disrespect. A lot of Michigan State fans are taking 6th in the preseason as disrespect, but I think the reality is there are more returning cores this year than Izzo seems to be implying there are. Like It's not like everybody pulled a Maryland, Indiana rebuild from scratch, right? Michigan went out and got 7 transfers or whatever they did. They're unique in the way they're doing that. A lot of teams are trying to balance retention with plugging gaps this year, and maybe that's taking a page out of Izzo's book. Maybe everybody saw how good Michigan State was last year and said, "I want a little bit of that." But yeah. Anyways, two different ways you can interpret it. Because I don't think that's what Izzo was saying. I think if you asked him, he would praise Illinois' roster too. But yeah, got to interpret things literally sometimes for the content side of things, and that's what a champ can do. I can be critical of another champ like Tom Izzo.